Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're doing another episode of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and use them to compare to their real-life fossil counterparts. And today we've got kind of returned to form. We've got lots of paleo edits with a couple new species we'll get into. Very interesting. So we're going to get started off by, most of these edits have been done by someone called TLK and NAB or something. I'll just refer to them as TLK because I think that's the easiest way for me to refer them to, because it's got a really confusing name. But we're going to be starting off with one of their first paleo edits here. We have got Archaeornithomimus. So let's have a quick look. So this is Archaeornithomimus. You can see a lot of the changes here. The most obvious one is that tail has been greatly extended. The one in Jurassic Park, which is based off the Gallimimus, of course, is a very short tail. We can see some also changes to the body, and those hands actually the right. Yeah, they actually are right. Interesting. So the hands are properly pronated, so they look like they're about to clap together. They can't put it up like rabbit hands, like some of the other dinosaurs, but they look about right. I think there's been some trimmers to the feet and legs and all that, and mainly longer tail, and some changes to the head. And Archaeornithomimus is kind of an earlier relative. They're in the family Gallimimuidae, which includes animals such as Gradulomimus and Achaeosaurus, which is like a kind of earlier group between like the Ornithomimidae, so that includes animals like Ornithomimus and things like that, and then animals such as like Gallimimus and uh, things like that, which is quite interesting. So they are in that kind of more base, more a little bit more derived, so in between kind of that group there. But yeah, really cool. Nice to see another paleo edit. Obviously, it should have feathers, but the arms are right and all that, which is really cool. Feathers you can't really change at the moment because of some issues with like porting feathers onto different species, but that'd be cool to get really cool feathers in the future, especially with like arm feathers, kind of like the Pyroraptor. I think that would be so cool. But yeah, really nice to see a paleo edit to tidy this guy up and make him look a little bit nicer. Really do enjoy these kind of paleo edits. You can see they add so much even though doing so little. You can see that wonderful round body he's got there. Really awesome. So let's let them fast forward a little bit. Next, we're moving on to another one by TLK. We've got Pachycephalosaurus.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to welcome our...
So here is our Packy, and we can see some of the wonderful changes that's been made on this guy. Well, look at this one. So you can see, obviously, he's got a bit of a rounded body, because from what we have of Pachycephalosaurus, it's got a very like oval body, which has probably helped to deal with those extra stresses of obviously hitting each other and things like that. But also, they are typically considered herbivores, sometimes maybe omnivores, so they would have more gut area for larger guts so they can better digest the food they eat. Yeah, really do like this. I like the changes to the head. You can tell the head's been a little bit edited to better fit. With that large dome head there, a little bit more longer muzzle, which is really cool. And what's really interesting is that these guys have teeth very much like, can't really see that here, very much like troodonts. So it's very likely that these guys may potentially had some omnivory, which would be very interesting. We just really don't have the evidence for that yet, but that's really cool. We can see the changes in the neck and the little spikes around the back here, which was through the growth stages, because we have talked about a lot about how Stygimoloch and Dracorex are younger growth stages of Pachycephalosaurus. So you would see how they would eventually come into that big dome head. So the big spikes on the face and behind the neck there would eventually come up into the big dome there. You can see this was changed, especially the neck and that round body. The tails will be made longer. One of the big thing with the dinosaurs of Jurassic World Evolution and just Jurassic Park in general, they make their tails far too short. I have to say, that looks really nice from that angle. And yeah, the only thing I'd really worry about too much is the hands. Those hands are really weird. They're all 5 digits, have nails where only the first digits would, and they look way, way, way too much like human hands, and it's really, really creepy. So it looks like a person with claws, and it is a little bit uncanny valley for me there. But with a little bit of edits, you could easily make that look right. Yeah, really, really awesome. Big fan. TLK did a wonderful job with these wonderful edits. And I mentioned these guys don't receive the very minimal edits, but I think it still makes it go all the way to make them look more like realistic animals. So let's wait for them to walk off and do their thing. Just leave us alone, and now we'll move on to the larger ceratopsians. We have got Pseudoceratops by TLK. So here is our Pseudoceratops. We can see definitely the biggest changes are like to the back there. The Pseudoceratops, most skeletals give it a really, really big rounded back there. They've got a very oval body. Looks really, really nice. Over here, you can see the tails has been extended a little bit, maybe a little bit too long. Ceratopsians didn't have very long tails for the most part, but I think probably to help compensate, it probably looks better. And they've got very thin tails, as you can see there. Very, very oval, round bodies, and see some minor changes to the head. You can see the Pseudoceratops with that very bull-like horns there, and then you've got that round face that works out there. So just some minor edits. Doesn't look the original Jurassic Park one got most of the features that were on the one in Battle of Big Rock pretty much spot on. So I'm glad that they got that right. You can see this big round face there. Look at that, really, really nice. The only thing I would say wrong is the feet, of course. As I mentioned, the 2 digits shouldn't have, 4 and 5 shouldn't have nails, and they should be a little bit more like weird crocodile feet. Pretty much the best way to say it. And there should be 4 on the back here, but that looks all right. It's very much fits that JP style. It's just these minor edits to make them look a little bit better. The one thing that I think the hardest for most people to get is kind of the hands and feet, and sometimes feathers, because feathers are kind of finicky at the moment. We only recently just got them in the game in June, so that's pretty interesting. But yeah, really nice little edit. I like just showing off all the different edits to show like how different people interpret these kind of different skeletals they use, things like that. Very, very cool. So next we're going to be moving on to, and last but not least, we've got Triceratops. So this is our last ceratopsian of the day. We've got a wonderful Triceratops. So let's have a look at, since you guys are over here. You can see some of the changes here. The tail's been made a little bit longer. You can kind of see that there, and the body's been greatly rounded up. Quite like how they give it that very round body. It's very interesting interpretation. It depends like on the skeletal. Sometimes different artistic interpretations and measurements kind of give it a different look. But looks very much like a realistic Triceratops, like how it could be portrayed realistically. With that very round back. Most reconstructions are a little bit more lenient with that, maybe a little bit more rounded. The Saurian one's a pretty good example of that, but this is kind of just like a slightly different skeletal, different slight interpretation. You can see that wonderful large head. You can see the extended keratin there. And this is definitely Horridus, you can kind of see there, because it's got that much more bulkier face. Porosus, which is the later species of Triceratops, has a much more leaner skull, and the nose horn is not quite as prominent. So this is definitely Horridus. You can see with that long tail there. Another thing issue as well with Jurassic Park, as I mentioned. But we can also see here the legs have been greatly extended. These guys have such huge hips and thighs, and that really accentuated well on there. See some changes to the skull and all that. Really, really nice. Another issue, same within the Pseudoceratops, just the issues with the feet. But yeah, nice interpretation. Really, really cool. Big fan. I really can't wait to see the Jagged Fang design one get imported, and that'll be cool because it's got the proper skin as well. These guys, as you can see, have got very, very small scales, but from what we know of Triceratops skin impressions, is that they had these very hexagonal scales going along their body, and they have these really big, like, quote, nipple scales. So it'd be really cool to see. So I really hope we get to see the Triceratops from Dragonfang Designs ported in. I think that'd be cool. Maybe as a cosmetic. Maybe there's a few others I think that would be definitely worth putting in for Dragonfang Designs when they decide to port over a lot of their things. I know they're going to. They've already done a couple things, but I'm really excited to see when that happens. They decide to fully port a lot of things. But yeah, really, really awesome. Nice to see the Triceratops. So let them run off and do their thing. That's the last of the Ceratopsians. Just let them run away. Just don't want them walking in front of mine. As close as they're doing right now. Very helpful. So we got next up, little Stegosaur with TLK again. We've got Huangosaurus. So we've got this very cute Huangosaurus. I'm definitely a big fan of this little guy. So you can find one standing over here. He's getting a bit mixed up in the mess of the dinosaurs, but we can have a look at this one over here. So this is Huangosaurus. We can see some of the major changes here. He's definitely got a bit of a tummy tuck, you could say. That head's been greatly slimmed up a bit. That's the word. Can't remember the word, but they like that slimmed up a bit. Especially that neck there. Very much rounded body, and I think there's been some edits to the plates as well, make them a little bit thinner and things like that, just correcting that anatomy. And you can see the tail's been a little bit extended, which is really, really cool, really gives it that long look. Very much more Stegosaurian with that big barrel chest and those shoulder spikes. This is actually really like the feet on this one. I don't think, let's see if you can, I can't spot, and maybe they all do, but this kind of looks like much more what you'd think Stegosaurus foot would look like if you got rid of those two nails. But yeah, really, really cool. Could be a little bit more of a horseshoe type design. Then you got the back feet here and these long tail, and the Thagomizer back here looks really, really nice. Then you got that big shoulder spike, though it's got a little bit of a, was that an issue? And here, yeah, the left one, it's got a little bit of a hole in it, but still really, really cool regardless. I think this is actually kind of one of my favorites because it just changed an animal that was so mediocre and really just made it look so much better just by actually giving us the characteristics of the animal. And yeah, it'd be cool to have change a little bit of textures, make the beak, things like that. I really hope there's more mods trying to experiment instead of just changing the anatomy. They're able to change the textures and things like that. And I think it'd be really, really cool. But yeah, really nice Huangosaurus. TLK did a really wonderful job. So we're going to be moving on from all these little herbivores. We've got one that I'm actually very particularly excited to talk about. We've got over here, we've got one of our big sauropods, one that hasn't got a remake yet. We've got Alamosaurus that got a paleo-accurate remodel by TLK as well. So we're going to have a look at that. Here's our Alamosaurus. So here's a wonderful big sauropod. We've got the Alamosaurus. A big, beautiful guy here. So, Alamosaurus, one of the new ones from the late Cretaceous dinosaur pack. Really, really has come out wonderfully. You can see a lot of the changes to anatomy, especially the head. This is almost like a weird version of the original Dreadnoughtus, but you can see some of the changes here. The head there is very much similar to other Titanosaurs, which is really, really cool. And you can see the nostrils there as well. That's right. Changed the neck there. I think the neck's got a bit of a trim as well. A lot more of a upturned body. got much more of a barrel shape torso as well. That's like Titanosaurs like that had very much big barrel chests. Especially, I believe the most recent kind of classifications for this guy includes it in groups like Poetosaurus and things like that, which is really, really cool. So it's more similar to kind of the anatomy of large, like Central American, not Central American, South American Titanosaurs, though these guys were from North America. Kind of their ancestry is kind of a mystery. They either come from Asia or they come from South America. I believe the most recent evidence suggests, or the most recent consensus, is that they come from South American Titanosaurs. Though very much could be wrong on that, but you can see how wonderful these guys look. As I mentioned, that head is very much like the proper anatomy instead of that really weird boxy anatomy of the original. So you look round here, and you see these large nostrils in there. Long neck. We actually have evidence of osteoderms in Alamosaurus and a lot of its relatives. So this really spiky look really does not only just make it look more distinct, it's actually based on fossil evidence, which is really, really cool. And you can see that it changes the body, much more round, big belly for fermenting all the plants that they eat. And the tail, as you can see, is also made quite a bit longer, with some spikes in well. I think that looks really, really nice. See some changes to the legs here. See, there's no change to the texture, but this would be very much like the other sauropods I keep mentioning. These guys would have had horseshoe-like fleshy pads, and even some of the Titanosaurs would have even lost like their first kind of digits, so they were pretty much just walking around on their knuckles constantly, and these would be one of those guys, which is really interesting. So they'd be walking around on their knuckles, and they've got those very columnar, long front legs, and slightly shorter back legs, but they're much thicker. You can see the change of the back feet here, these three big claws that they've got going on here. They turn sideways, allow them to dig and things like that with these elephant-like pads, which they have. Really, really nice. I think this is actually kind of one of the best ones, up there with the Huangosaurus. Definitely love seeing sauropods, because I do love sauropods. I just have a fascination with big animals like elephants and whales and things like that. But it really shows the proper anatomy and really brings it to life, I think. And these little spots as well, these osteoderms, really give it a more distinct look from the other animals. And I love that barrel chest as well. Really makes it look big. Imagine like a person. As you're standing here, you're probably about this tall, and you look up and you see something big and beautiful like that. Let's see if I can get a proper person. We can go first person view. We completely forgot that we had that. So let's have a look at you from the first person view. And see, that just looks like a real animal, doesn't it? Really, really awesome. Though you wouldn't want to probably get this close to a living Titanosaur. But, yeah, you can see how big and wonderful he is. You can walk under him. Beautiful, beautiful animal. TLK really did a wonderful job bringing us this Titanosaur. Big, big fan. So let them walk off and do their thing. I'll have to let them walk off a little more because I don't want them getting in front of the next one. So here we've got last one by TLK. Last but most definitely not least, we have got Deinonychus edit by TLK. So here is our Deinonychus. Really, really cool animals here. So let's get a good look at this one. Here's a good look at this one. So you can see it doesn't have that silly head crest, of course, but it is much better. This kind of fits kind of the 1990s interpretation of Deinonychus, where it was like, obviously, feathers was still kind of a controversial thing back then, and people still had that kind of weird anatomy thing going on, but you can see the changes of the head. Similar to Velociraptor, they would have been a little bit bigger. They would have been about like the size of a wolf rather than the size of a turkey. And they had a bit of a boxier head, much more like that, rather than the thinner face that Velociraptor would have had. But still a very interesting animal there, and with the large neck. And you can see that very much bird-like body. You can see, if you guys have looked at a naked bird, you can see they've got that bird hip going on, and this very large ischium and pubis stuff going there. Makes it look like almost like a keel on a boat, which is really, really interesting. Obviously, what's wrong with it is it's got no feathers, because of things I mentioned before, and those hands are pronated, and they're like bunny hands. In real life, they would be covered, they would be supporting a wing, which is not necessarily for flight, but they could have used it for display, things like that. They would have pennaceous feathers, is the term, going down to the middle finger, and it would be like almost like they're clapping all the time, so clap, clap, clap. And you can see also the tail's been greatly extended. There's been edits to the feet. They've got these big claws, these large dew claws that would have very likely been used to either hold on to prey or potentially stab at the throat to try and dispatch their prey as quickly as possible. But yeah, really, really cool edits. I'm a big fan of these guys. Also another minor edit, just made a little bit leaner and meaner and got rid of that really weird crest that the original one had. But yeah, it still looks really, really nice. Definitely a big fan. So let them walk off, do their thing. So next up, we're moving on to a new species for the day. So I'm just going to let these guys run off, because this is a herbivore. So this next one is done by Sweetener. Really, really cool mod maker. Really big fan of a lot of their work. We have got Ugra naluk. Just want to get them before they start running. But here we have our wonderful Ugra naluk. So Ugra naluk is a extinct genus. It's a dubious genus, as we'll get into, of hadrosaur that came from Alaska. Lived during the late Cretaceous. And its original name means ancient grazer, and its full scientific name is Ugranaluk Kupaikenensis, I believe there. It was quite a decent-sized animal, like 9 or 10 meters or so. And there's believed to be more than 6,000 bones of Ugranaluk discovered in the Luscombe bone bed by the Colville River in Alaska. And these guys were originally kind of given to assigned as a Lumbosaurid and then to Edmontosaurus, but then was originally distinguished as its own genus in 2015 or so, and was called Ugranaluk cupenensis. But eventually that kind of thought, these guys are juveniles, we don't really have enough diagnostic features, so they eventually got lumped back into Edmontosaurus, especially in 2015, because most of the remains that were found of Ugranaluk, or attributed to Ugranaluk, were either juvenile, so obviously features change as you age, so you can't really tell certain anatomies, and they were undiagnostic, or bones with no features that really tell you how they're related to other dinosaurs. So this believed that was kind of just a preemptive thing, and they've been lumped back into Edmontosaurus regalis, which is typically considered that kind of species. But if re-elevated, they could be proven to be distinct, or they could be their own species of Edmontosaurus. So they could be Ugranaluk or Edmontosaurus Kupaikenensis, maybe not their own genus, but that's fussy taxonomy being fussy taxonomy. But yeah, really, really cool guys here. So in terms of their size, I mentioned they would have been about 9-10 meters long, with probably about 2 to 3 meters at the hip. So these guys, in the time, even at the time, Alaska was actually pretty cold. So they lived in the Arctic, and they would have been adapted for living in these cooler regions, or potentially migrated. So what happened with these guys, Alaska at the time would be nowhere near as cold as it was today, but there was often snow. It was freezing, but not quite as freezing, just because the world was a little bit warmer during the late Cretaceous than today. Not to, even though people consider it like a greenhouse world, there were still some glaciers, and there was still snow at some points. So these guys would have dealt with snow. And yeah, really, really cool. Even though they're not really considered their own thing anymore, just another cool animal. Gives you another interpretation of Edmontosaurus to have in the game. And you can see it's got the correct anatomy as well, which I love. It's got, over here you can see it's got the hoof that that was being found at Edmontosaurus, and it's got the anatomy change. These large resonating chambers here, making their calls. Really, really big fan. Just another cool interpretation. Even if it's a dinosaur that's kind of considered invalid or lumped into Edmontosaurus, it's just another cool animal to have. And have a little break. We can see these guys are doing a cute little interaction. Let's watch this, because let's have a little break, because why not? Look how cute these guys are. Oh. That's so cute. While we watch the Ugranaluk do their thing, hopefully they don't run off. Yeah, really, really nice animals. Oh, they're starting to run off. I'll let them hopefully move away from here because we're moving on to our last species. We have got, for last but certainly not least, by Rommel Hernandez, I believe you say that. We have got another Arctic animal from the late Cretaceous of Alaska slash like Canada, places like that. From the there's also from Alaska as well. So we have got Nanukasaurus. We'll wait for these guys to run around and leave them alone. Oh, it's blocked by Dinosaur. Of course it is. Just wait for it to. Where is the dinosaur? Is it? Oh, there. Release in progress. There we are. So release is in progress, but we'll just little bit of technical difficulties, but that's okay. Here we've got Nanukasaurus by Rommel Hernandez, I believe you say that, or Heinz, how you say that. We'll have a look at this one because he's pretty. This is Nanukasaurus. So these guys are a genus of Tyrannosaurid from the late Cretaceous, around the early to late Maastrichtian of the Prince Creek Formation in Alaska, and is named a single species, Nanukasaurus honguli, which is only known from a partial skull and many undescribed remains, like teeth and postcranial. It was first discovered in 2006, found in Alaska. It was first referred to its relatives, kind of Albertosaurus and Gorgosaurus, but then it was recognized as a new species and dated to about 69 million years ago. And the bones consist of like a partial jaw with some maxilla and things like that. And the specimen is from a fully mature individual as well, and had a smooth crest, things like that. Was first described in 2014 with the type specimen, or the type species being named Nanukasaurus holugi, which is named from the Inuit word of polar bear Nanuk and saurus, so it's basically the polar bear lizard. And its scientific name refers to the philanthropist Forrest Hogould, which was for his work on cultural institutions and also his philanthropy, so basically helping out causes, things like that. At its initial description, it was kind of considered a pygmy tyrannosaur because it was only originally described about 5 or 6 meters long, which is about half the length of a Tyrannosaurus rex, and estimated to be between 500 900 kilograms or 1,100 to 2,000 pounds. But over time, it's actually been found that these guys may have been larger sizes, and it was originally believed that the small size may have been because of living in a high altitude climate, being smaller, being able to better save resources. Though that's kind of the opposite of Bergman's rule. When animals live in cooler climates, they tend to get bigger, which is the opposite case. But maybe it could have been they got smaller because they were less resources, things like that. But these claims were initially described as being unfounded, and there have been other remains and teeth suggest that these guys were similar in size to Albertosaurus, and even considerable to things like a juvenile Tarbosaurus, so potentially up to 7 to 9 meters long, so about 22 to 30 feet. So still a pretty big animal. So so in that kind of same size range as those middle size Tyrannosaurs, so like Albertosaurus, Gorgosaurus, even getting up there with Tarbosaurus, which is pretty cool. And these guys would have been particularly sharp ridge on its head, which indicated these guys were related to Tyrannosaurus rex. And the length of the skull reconstructed is about 70 centimeters, or 24 to 60 to 70 inches, or 24 to 28 inches, I mean. And these guys are classified as a Tyrannosaurine. So in that group, more closely related to Tyrannosaurs compared to Albertosaurs. So these guys would have been more related to things like Lythronax, Diamanterra, and Tetraphonius. And right before the split of Daspletosaurine, so these guys kind of are sister to their group, so Daspletosaurus and Thanatorestes, I believe you say that. So these guys are closely related to that group. In terms of their paleobiology and stuff like that, these guys would have lived in Laramidia about late Cretaceous, about 69, 70 million years ago, and lived in Laramidia. And during this time, because they lived at the poles, they would have been lots of time they would spend up in the north. There'd be pretty much lots of time in sunlight, and then have months pretty much no sunlight, which kind of happens at the poles. And that was believed to be a reason why they had a small size. as a large animal could not survive with these resources, but that's kind of considered to be unfounded. Though they did live with troodonts, which were 50% larger than a lot of other troodonts across America, so there could have been something about being more competitive up there, which is pretty interesting. Though the holotype is actually a younger individual, which is why they think the 8 to 9 meter size interpretation for Nanukasaurus is more accurate these days, because we actually have adult specimens now rather than the 5 or 6. But these guys lived in the Prince Creek Formation, which lived between 71 to 68 million years ago in Alaska. And early Lake Maastrichtian was about that time. And they would have lived alongside animals such as Leptoceratopsid, also had Montosaurus, Lambesaurine, a Thescalosaurine related to Pachycephalosaurus or Thescalosaurus, a relative of Orodromius, the Ceratopsid and Pachyrhinosaurus, and Alaskacephalae, which is a Pachycephalosaurid, also with Troodon or Stegosaurus, if you say that, Dromaeosaurs, lots of other undescribed small avians or avialans, and Orthronodal Mimosaur as well. This guy probably was a predator of Ugra naluk, or Irregalis, as it's pretty much what it's considered now, and would have been probably a top predator in that ecosystem, probably competing with those larger troodonts from Alaska, which is quite interesting. And though they were not as pygmy tyrannosaurs as originally described, they probably still were top predators of their time, kind of competing with those troodonts, and actually quite a bit up there, not those little pygmies. They were up there with Gorgosaurus and Daspletosaurus and even Tarbosaurus in size. So really, really cool. And even though these guys are quite a bit smaller in the game here, it's kind of going with that old interpretation. I would even put these guys potentially in like Albertosaurus, and that would be more correct sizing. But yeah, really, really cool. Big fan of these guys. And even though that white coat's a little bit of a meme, I understand it kind of makes it distinct, especially just because a lot of the others have more interesting patterns. Because as I mentioned, these guys would have been living in the snow all the time like a polar bear would. There would have been snow at times, but it wasn't as cold as Alaska. It was not as cold then as it is today. There would have still been like lots of temperate trees and things like that. Nowhere near as cold as it was today, but still would be snow, potentially bad storms, things like that. So yeah, really, really cool. Big fan of these guys. So Rommel did a really great job. So really cute little guys. I believe this is actually a port from a Zoo Tycoon mod or something. Really, really awesome. But I think this is a great place to end the video. So I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.